It's some intro music. Now a discussion of Captain Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Gaymer Pups. It is I, Hachi, and Moo's back, so we got their opinion.
Hey, welcome back, Moo.
He really wanted my opinion last week because he thought I was going to start a fight.
And then we have our special people here, Kurt Jacobs and Star Shadow, our fam. And we're here to talk about episode 3 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Now, if you haven't seen the episode, here's your spoiler warning. See the episode. Otherwise, you're going to get spoiled starting now. So the episode opens up with just the logo, which is very different from what they've been doing usually. I guess it's because it's kind of going into a serious business mode. Right after the logo, we go into a GRC commercial, which it's kind of like a PETA commercial. The way I saw it, like it was very much kind of like look at all the charity things that we do, and it ends with reset, restore, rebuild. So that's kind of their motto. We have this positive image of the GRC, but the immediate next image after this commercial ends is a GRC police van pulling up to a place in Munich, Germany, and you have the GRC police and John Walker bust the place that Carly Morgenthau was staying. Previous episode, the owner there calling them American brutes, and one of them spits in John Walker's face, and he has this ridiculous breakdown moment where I thought legitimately like that dude's face was going to get punched.
The obvious ramifications of helping a terrorist organization, what seems to be a terrorist organization, they see themselves as freedom fighters. Of course, the cops come a-calling. So, John Walker leading the charge into the building. Like you said, I thought for sure he was going to just rail the guy, throw him across the room or something like that. But and he got mad, but he didn't beat the shit out of him, I was kind of surprised.
Because they did cut away really quick after he said, "Do you know who I am?" And the guy was like, "I know who you are, and I don't give a fuck."
I don't care. I like that.
Essentially, I really want to see this guy go off the deep end and just be like, "Oh, I just fucked up this really iconic image of Captain America just because I am a giant tool."
That's a good point. I'm afraid that that's ultimately going to happen. I don't think this series is going to end without there being a giant stain on Captain America's figurative shield. And then it's going to be up to Sam or Bucky to kind of restore the good name that is Captain America. Moo, what do you think about that opening scene with the commercial and the break?
I have a lot of thoughts. And even on that, what he just said, I think it's important to remember that Captain America was a good person from the start. Before the serum, before everything, without the military. And the military took that because Captain America by himself was the propaganda that they did in the commercial. He was the good person. He lived the ideal. That was him. But the difference now with the new Cap is he's commentary on the American military. He has literally been in the military from the get-go, top things, constantly sees himself as the good guy. And everything that America does is the good guy. This propaganda before and everything that they do about what they do is all there and it's set up. But then we get what we're pretty familiar with how America can be in other countries. And we're not exactly the most good guys. He can't live up to the ideal of what the original Captain America was, because he never was that.
But he said he jumped on a grenade 4 times.
Yeah.
Because his helmet is reinforced. It's kind of this thing he does. He was trying to make sure that he did all the things that Steve did.
The other thing I would mention, too, is that John is actually, I think, what they would have ended up with if the super soldier had been given to whoever the original military guy.
Yep.
I can't remember the name of the general off the top of my head, but he did not want Steve.
Yep.
And it
Steve
was actually
ill-fit.
he was ill fit to serve, right? And it was actually the doctor who really pushed Steve as being the candidate. And I think even kind of like when he threw the grenade out and Steve jumped on the grenade, it was kind of like he was like, well, if that's really what you want, then fine, And you ended up with someone who was the most honorable person you could ever possibly imagine. So
I think Steve
John is pretty much what they would have gotten otherwise.
I think Steve does everything he did because it's the right thing to do, where John does things because it's the duty. It's his duty to do it. It's this sense of this military. It's that mentality of it. In this opening scene, everything, I think it just completely fits that giant contrast. Steve literally walks the walk and talks the talk. And literally, they're doing the talk for him, and he can't walk the walk that is Captain America. He's basically still just a military man with a bunch of paint on him to make him look like Captain America, but he's still the U.S. military at the core. That's what he is. That is John Walker.
The next scene after that is the prison back in Munich, Germany, where we left off on the last episode. Now, on the last episode, there was a big orchestra scene. There's slow walk, long panels, shots of going down these halls and stuff. And it ends with Zemo, right? Emerging from the darkness. And then at the end of that episode, we had a little bit of a prediction kind of thing. Like, oh, what's going to be on the next episode? Well, unfortunately, the therapist did not turn out to be a super soldier, so I lost that one. But I think
we don't know yet.
That's true. We don't know yet. But Star Shadow, I think you won the prediction game because you're the one that said that they were going to break out Zemo and then be some kind of unlikely pair, which is exactly what happened. In this prison scene, Bucky goes alone, knowing that Zemo can't really deal with superheroes because he's got this code, right? And speaking of code, when Bucky gets there by himself, the first thing that Zemo does is use the code words. But Bucky's changed, and it doesn't really affect him. And but Zemo knows, as he's heard. And then we find out that Zemo didn't actually blip out of existence or snapped out of existence. So telling us that Zemo's been in there for at least 5-6 years. Zemo goes on to tell Bucky that he was just a means to an end, which was kind of a low blow.
I think I'm constantly paying attention to the interpersonal stuff because I think that's like the big thing about a lot of this identity and their interpersonal relationship between Falcon and Bucky. And so Sam and Bucky going back and forth, and Bucky already is basically set this up and doing it. And again, I'm going to say you see Sam actually mirroring the ideals of the good boy. Sam never would have done this, and he would not have been okay with this, and he would not have worked with Zemo or have ever started this. And Bucky knew that. It's also the reason why Bucky didn't get chosen to be take up the shield. Bucky wasn't the right person. Sam was. Bucky didn't care about crossing over this line in order to work with an enemy.
Yeah, no, it's kind of interesting to know that Zemo was in there for the whole 5 years and just he's had a lot of time to think about what he's done and what he wants to do moving forward. His goals kind of align with Sam and Bucky's.
I don't think Zemo's changed. I think he doesn't want superheroes, and I think although the funny thing is he's going to become, I think, a supervillain, which is ironic that he's a bad guy fighting superheroes who's kind of a super villain. But yeah, like absolutely, Bucky Bucky knew Sam would not be on board with this. And so he was absolutely like, you know what, I'm just going to get him out. And then that way we have what we need and we can start moving forward. And so, I mean, Sam was absolutely right. I loved it when they yelled at Zemo. He was like, can I just give my opinion? They're like, both like, no. That fucking cracked me up. And, Zemo getting his stuff for his car. Interesting that he's in Germany and these are his, he has a stash of vehicles just sitting there somewhere in Germany.
Obviously, Zemo really isn't I think he's got more. I think he's satisfied with what's happened. Obviously, being in prison for all those times, he's had to have at least heard what's happened with Infinity War and Endgame. So, I think he understands that at a certain levels there are a need for superheroes. I think what he doesn't want is to have more John Walkers. Essentially, this is what he later on ends up saying. For those who are not big comic book fans, this is where you start getting a lot of background on Zemo. Sam, who is our entry point character here, is like, hey, all this time you've been rich. And that's when he drops that he's not just Helmut Zemo, he's Baron Helmut Zemo. His family was royalty in Sokovia, and he had all this money. He grabs his iconic comic book mask. He immediately starts playing mind games with Bucky once they were on the plane going to Madripoor. And he ends up getting the notebook that we were talking about in the first episode. Interesting point here. That's Steve's notebook. I'm assuming he passed that torch, aka the notebook, to Bucky, saying like, hey, here's some things that I asked and I learned in all my time away, and you might, this might help you out, get accustomed to everything modern. Here comes Helmut Zemo and talks about like how important and impactful this Afro musical experiences for like this like classic Marvin Gaye song. And Sam just corrects him. He goes, he's stepping out of line, but he's correct. If you that might have kind of gone over some people's heads, but I saw it, I recognized it. I was like, okay, this is kind of a call at cultural appropriation. Zemo says something about putting heroes on pedestals. That was what Steve was. We have a tendency of putting heroes on pedestals. They become symbols, they become icons, and then we essentially forget about their flaws. And when that happens, there are innocent people who lose their lives.
This scene is to remind you who and what Zemo is about, right? That he is, for every Steve Rogers that happens, there's a Red Skull coming right behind him. So for every good guy that you have that has enhanced powers, you also get maybe a bad guy. And the bad guys do a lot more damage. And that's the reason why he is just not on board with any super powered beings at all. And it's a completely justifiable argument. But, on the other hand, if you don't have any defense against superpowered beings from another planet, you can't really stop those. How are you supposed to defend yourself? So, but I think that whole scene is really, it's about setting up what Zemo and it really is. I did love the Sam correcting him and saying he's out of line. Like, I wouldn't call it cultural appropriation. He's basically saying like, you don't have the right to talk about the black experience. But he is absolutely right. So, maybe Zemo read that in a magazine or something like that. So, but I did love the book. I did love the fact that they brought the book back, because there was speculation that was, like Sam was, Bucky was doing the same thing that Steve did. And it actually turns out to be the same book.
When they brought up that it was Steve's notebook, it was like Steve probably gave it to Bucky like after Endgame, like after he had already pretty much lived through all the stuff he was experiencing in that book, and it's like, you know what, I don't need this anymore. Here you go.
He gave Sam the shield to carry on the mantle and the legacy, and then he gave Bucky the notebook. Post-snap, post-blip, the Sokovia Accords are still... I really enjoy the moral questions that have started in Civil War and are being continued here, because there was a really huge human element in Civil War. I mean, it was all about superheroes. But when you really honestly look at Zemo, he's not an android. He's not an alien or a wizard, right? He's just a dude. So then Zemo says that the next breadcrumb that they had to follow is in Madripoor. Before we go to Madripoor, there's a really quick, tiny little scene of the GRC camp in Latvia. I brought this up because even though it's a quick, 2-minute scene, the location of where this GRC refugee camp, you start seeing, Carly is part of these refugees. Or is there, or is one-on-one with these people, and yet the GRC, who are hunting her down, I guess don't know her, or she's hiding in plain sight. Additionally, what I can only assume is her mother figure, dies in this scene. So now we're at Madripoor. They spend a lot of money on the Madripoor scenes. It has to be. There's a lot of long shots, big scenery shots, a lot of just random extras, and just showing the nightlife in this scene. In order to get to Lowtown, our unlikely team have to go as Baron Zemo, the Winter Soldier, and Smiling Tiger. There is lots of warnings of the Power Broker in just the scenery alone. There's a lot of symbols there. You're getting attacked by a lot of scenery leading up to the bar. And so I haven't really kind of looked into what those symbols and messages are, but the big one that stands out is the Power Broker is watching.
Just the amount of details that they add in the, and just the things that they show, there's a certain shot that shows the Princess Bar, and that was a bar that Logan Wolverine used to hang out with. I could be mistaken, but I think he may have partially owned that. But that was one of the places he ended up living in Madripoor for a period of time. So there's just so many things going on in the Madripoor scenes. I have to say that the fight scene with Bucky going after these guys was awesome. It was just absolutely great watching these guys get their faces smashed in, and they were looking for Shelby to try to, the Zemo says he wants to meet with Shelby, and the bartender serves Sam this. I don't even know what the hell it was they took out of the snake, this worm or something.
It's gonads.
Was it?
Yep.
Was it gonads?
Yep.
Oh my god, that was just fucking awesome. And Sam's like, he just wouldn't want to get it out. There's a lot of great stuff in that whole scene, but that just watching Bucky take all these guys out without even breaking a sweat was just fucking awesome. So.
I like how Zemo makes a note here that he really fell into it took Bucky zero consciousness to just jump right back into Winter Soldier attack dog mode.
Yeah.
Which is cool. And then the reason why all of this is important, the reason why there's a fight scene here, is that Zemo told the crew as they were approaching Madripoor and Madripoor Lowtown, is that maintaining their identity is so crucial in this moment. They have to maintain their identity or they won't even get anywhere close to where they want to go. They go meet Selby, and then Selby is in some kind of trade negotiation with Zemo. They seem to know each other. So Zemo does this deal with Selby, basically giving Bucky to Selby as an attack dog, for information on Dr. Wilford Nagel, who discovered the serum. Sam's attempt in this scene to be Smiling Tiger was not good. Obviously, they're talking about the bank here, and he's like, oh, yeah, those laundered so much money, I'm going to kill that banker.
I felt for Sam so hard through this whole thing, like, oh my god.
It was an interesting move to use Bucky as a bargaining chip. He has some rules that I'm pretty sure he broke all of them in this episode.
He did break rule number 2. Don't hurt people.
Unlike Sam, he wasn't doing identity theft. He was who he said he was.
So with Sam's cover blown, things get deadly, like, immediately. And as quickly as it came, it was quickly put down by Sharon Carter. Madripoor turns violent extremely quick. Then we are basically taken to Hightown. This is a very little scene. Sharon hates the idea that the shield was given up. And, you know, more fuckery from Zemo here. But Sam manages to make a deal with Sharon by basically promising that he'll clear her name if she helps them find Dr. Nagel.
So one of the key points she keeps bringing up was kind of the hypocrisy of it all around the shield and kind of who they were. For Sharon, she talks about these ideals and kind of things, but the thing is she's already accepted the hypocrisy and she's completely working with it. She knows it's hypocritical. So she's like completely given in and away from all those ideals in order to get to the means. She's done. She says, "Oh, fuck all this." Whereas in comparison to what's his name, John Walker is still like running along with his hypocrisy, being this like entire like antithesis to what the shield is, and like a disillusion, trying to like put on this whole facade about what Captain America is. And she's talking greatly to that to both Bucky and Sam. You're kind of to see how her views of like overall changed, because she's got this long history. Who was the person which one did she have the long? Was it Sam or Bucky that she knew?
Well, essentially it was Steve, because
Steve.
she is the grand or great granddaughter of Margaret Carter.
Oh, okay.
She's her granddaughter.
Yeah.
So she's mostly fed up with all this shit, and that's mostly what I was getting from this. But it was more or less that she speaks of the hypocrisy, and we see in the following scene how she is basically said, "Hey, fuck all this. I have my own way of doing things now."
Because she's got that killer art parties. Okay, I don't know what the fuck is happening in Madripoor, but I didn't realize artwork was that exciting. Holy shit.
Sharon is actually Peggy's niece, grandniece, I think. So, because Peggy never had any kids that we know of. She definitely is. The way they're portraying her right now is that she's, you know, like she's just like the rest of the human race. She's just trying to survive. She can't go back to the United States. She can't do what she was trained to do as a military officer or as a spy. And so she basically is, you know, just paying out, just selling out to the highest bidder, and, you know, selling art, original art pieces, which is, again, another way that they kind of say, look, everything that, you know, there's the haves, which are the people like Sharon and the rich people, the power brokers and those guys, and the have-nots, which are the Carlys of the world, right? And maybe even Sam to a lesser extent, and Bucky, because they don't really have anything. They don't have any power. They don't have any money. They can struggle to get a bank loan, and they get harassed by the police on the streets. Whereas someone like Sharon, who's, you know, throwing wild parties for, you know, rich individuals selling her artwork and stuff like that. So clearly that's the way they're portraying her. But personally, I think what they're going to do is you're going to find out she's actually probably still working for Fury and infiltrating Madripoor to try to find the super soldier serum that has been being developed. And I think this aligns with her. I think she's going to turn out to be the spy that she always has been.
I will say, like, I've never, ever, ever, ever in any show or like any like story seen someone who sells artwork and it wasn't done for embezzlement and money laundering.
But I do
for a
love
power broker.
I do love the way that Zemo danced. He dances like he was like.
Oh God, Oh, why did you remind me? Oh my
That
God,
was awesome.
I
People
remember.
were
I was like, dude, don't ever fucking dance again. Don't ever dance. Sharon was saying that she was a hustler. She had to hustle because she has nothing, and she was pretty much. I mean, she's not happy that she had to save Sam, and who's the first person she sees? She sees Zemo, and she's pretty pissed because she's like, last time I saved your wings so that you can save him, pointing to Bucky, to get him away from him, pointing to Zemo. And yet here we are, and these three amigos are together.
And now she can't go back to the United States, and she's like fucking like in trouble.
Yeah.
All because of all that mess right there.
Right, but see, like, it points out that not everybody's clearly the same in this world, right? The GRC, the people who are returned, African Americans. There's a lot of not so clear lines in power structure, right? Because even though Sharon was one of the good guys, she can't go back home. So she finds out where Dr. Nagel is. She takes him to the shipping yard container, and a bunch of like cool stuff happens here. You kind of see Sharon in action, which is really awesome. But then you also see, I guess, if up to this point you had questioned maybe Zemo's a good character. This scene here definitely confirms that Zemo is definitely not a good character. And also you find out what happens and how they got the super serum soldier, because they end up talking to Dr. Nagel.
Yeah, so this is a little bit of a kind of a retcon. I mean, the Nagel is the name of the doctor who worked for the power broker and would give people their superpowers and stuff like that. But obviously because of the timeline that they've had to kind of shift things around a little bit, and so because Nagel would have been earlier on, so he literally just got involved in this within the last after Hydra started getting into it, and so he was obviously working with them. Then the U.S. government picked him up, blip, and then the power broker picked him up once that came back. It does seem like Magipore is kind of right now it's kind of like the last place for people to go when they have no other option, because we also find out later that Carly is also lived in Magipore, and that's how she got her hands on the super soldier serum, which Nagel tells them that Carly got away with the 20 vials of the serum, and there were 7 of them that had taken it, I think, so there were maybe 13 left. But yeah, you're right, Zemo, you can just feel Zemo like looking for something, and as Sam and Bucky are interrogating Nagel, Zemo pulls a gun or finds a gun and shoots him, so that way he can't create any more super soldier serum. And rocket propelled grenade comes in and blows up the facility, so all of his notes and everything that he was working on and all the serum and everything that was in that facility, although they said there wasn't any more in the facility that were in right there, but everything's destroyed. Daniel's dead. Everything's destroyed. So, what they have on hand is going to be what they're going to have on hand. Sharon was just absolutely awesome. She kicked some serious ass. So it was great.
This is a moment where I feel a little bit conflicted because I do not disagree with what Zemo did. Could have there been easier ways? Could have there been less violent ways to do it? Yes. But now there's no more way to get the super soldier serum. Steve's blood was a huge plot point for the Agent Carter series, right? They didn't want to get that blood in the wrong hands. So people with the super soldier blood are valuable, and isolating those components, which is what Dr. Nagel did, is highly dangerous. So with him being dead, the lab being destroyed, there is no way that they can reproduce the super serum soldier. So I'm okay with this, but I usually tend to walk a darker line anyways. Moo?
Okay. So you remember from episode 1 where I talked about why the fuck did the United States all of a sudden need a Captain America? And as I'm sitting through this, and I'm remembering now that Nagel was formerly with the U.S., and he was contracted, and he was making this for them, he blipped, and his work was gone and done, and he came back, and he ended up leaving. The U.S. government's very peculiar about like what's its and what it isn't. And if one of its assets went to another country and started producing something that it considered valuable, a military valuable thing like a super serum, it would want to do whatever it could to get it back or destroy it so that no one else besides it had the power to do it. So we're now seeing someone who is a little concerned about the fact that Nagel died after he got shot. And then we also see his entire lab get destroyed, and other things going on, but we also see a Captain America that's looking for the super serum and looking for it. And we believe his motives are purely to stop it, but we don't know the U.S. government's motives behind the whole thing. And it could be entirely to get the serums back in the hands of the U.S. military.
So I want to underline here that the GRC is not the United States. The GRC to me seems more like a UN type of operation. It
was Nagel contracted by the U.S. government or the GRC?
So when Nigel was part of Hydra, when they were infiltrated, Hydra fell. CIA hired Nigel to continue this work. He ended up turning to dust. He came back. They abandoned the project, and he came to Madripoor knowing that the power broker or somebody would fund his work. And that's basically how they got to where they are now. As we know, Zemo, Sam, and Bucky escape in a car. And then you had this tiny, small scene with Sharon where she's talking to a person. I've never seen this person before. And she basically says, we have 2 big problems, and we got to report them, essentially. Now, report them to who is the question here. Who is Sharon working for?
And that whole spy thing, it was the other thing that made me all of a sudden go, oh, wait, she could be like one another direction because to get all the things back.
She is all fuck the government. And it's like she's living in a city that is she's living in Hightown. How could she have gotten there without at least probably working for the power broker in some way?
So Moo here is Sharon is working for the U.S. government.
That's a thought.
And me and Star Shadow were like, nope, definitely power broker. Dad,
I think she's double agent. She is working for the power broker, but ultimately I would think she's probably working for Fury or possibly the U.S. government. But I would say probably Fury or someone in the what we would have considered the SHIELD line of command, because she is that's her skill set, right? Like she's a spy, and she would have to they come in and she can't be like oh, it's so good to see you guys, like don't tell anyone, but I'm a spy. Like she's gonna be like, oh, that's bullshit, it's all hypocrisy and everything like that, because that's her cover, right? She's been fucked by the U.S. government, fucked by the international world government, everything, and so that's how she probably got it in with the power broker. As to why, though, she led them to Nagel only to have him get killed, that's not going to make the power broker very happy. And if, to Moo's point, like if they're trying to get back the super soldier serum, that's also not going to be a good thing, because she's now got a problem either with the power broker or with whoever she's working for. So somehow she's in trouble.
So that brings up a good point, because we'll segue here to Lithuania. at a GRC compound that Carly is going to rob with her friends. And we get a lot of background on Carly here. I think for the last 2 episodes that we've been seeing, they're really trying to paint Carly as like, hey, you know, she's had a tough childhood. You know, this the blip really wasn't good for her. Everything was going bad. She had to go to Madripoor. She suffered a lot. She took the super soldier serum. I'm assuming to be like a test subject or a hired muscle or something for the power broker. But then she got these ideas and she stole it. All this stuff, right? When her buddy friend or whatever, boyfriend, I don't know, is like, hey, you know, the power broker is going to eventually catch up with us and kill us. To Dad's point, now that Nigel's dead, Carly is now the only person with 13 samples that we know of. 13 samples that are left. So now Carly...
Doesn't mean 7 have been used? He said he made 20.
20, right. And 7, there were 7 test subjects.
So it's 7 test subjects, okay.
Right.
I thought there were 8. I thought there were 8 of them.
1 died, remember?
Whatever.
1 got shot in last episode.
There's not very many left.
You're right.
Oh, yeah.
There's
the
no
last
way to make
episode,
more.
the one dude died.
So now Carly's position is valuable to the power broker. And then we kind of start seeing Carly's dark side. Now the Flag Smasher really isn't as nice as we'd like to see. I hate it when villains do this thing where they do this are like, this is the language that they do. They only understand violence, so I'm going to do something violent, right? I feel like it's an excuse to do something horrible.
Okay.
So like, she ends up blowing this building with people inside.
It very much is sort of like they're trying to bring her down the villain path instead of just being this morally ambiguous character that you see a lot of other villains start to become. And it's just like, why would you want to do this when you're clearly trying to set up another villain in the power broker?
I'm not really sure where it's going at the moment. I'm trying to think of why, because I think starts at a point kind of like, oh, they're sitting with a power broker. And they're very much the have-nots. I see their argument, but we also have to remember that they are technically the extremes of the argument of, hey, we're not being represented, we're not being taken care of, it's not fair for what's going on with the blip and stuff, and not all the people who came back, and where are we in this representation, we're being screwed type things because it was good for us and type shit. Normally all the extremes always become bad. So if she's going that far, she's bad. She's just a different type of bad. She's an idealistic bad instead of a morally bad. No, they're crossing the morally bad when they blow up a fucking building. But
kind of to your point, Hachi, like they kind of portrayed her as being somewhat of a Robin Hood, and in fact, they even called her that in the last episode, right? That she was kind of like Robin Hood because she was stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. You know, we think of Robin Hood as being a good character, you know, like generally, we don't really think of them as you know, being a bad character, but now they've kind of thrown her. They started to move her towards the dark side.
She's definitely taking this darker path. Even her compatriot just looked at her like, what the fuck did you... Yeah, exactly. She was... Even like when you cross a line that even your closest allies look at you funny, like that is like like that should be your turning point. That's the sign that says turn here to return to sanity. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not sure if Carly's going to actually do, you know, I think she's going to succumb to this dark side here. And so our unlikely heroes end up back in the Zemo-mobile. Not really much gets discussed here. They kind of get a lead to where Carly might be. But the interesting thing here is how Sam comes to terms with his choice. I know we've been talking about in the last 2 episodes that we've done here is I've sided with Sam a lot. Basically how, you know, he thought he did a lot of good, but through meeting Isaiah, going through Madripoor, what's happening with Sharon, he says this line that is basically, how many people have to be steamrolled for a hunk of metal? And the hunk of metal being Cap's shield, in which Bucky comes in and says, hey, dude, so you made a mistake, and Sam agrees with him. But Sam still kind of doesn't want to take up the Cap mantle. So he at least knows that he shouldn't have given it to the U.S. government. He feels like he should have destroyed it. And Bucky comes in here and says, essentially, if you're not going to take the shield, I'm going to take the shield. So now we have another Cap in the ring, right? So I came into the show pretty much convinced that Sam was going to be the new Captain America. But if Sam sticks to his convictions, it could very well be Bucky. You don't think so?
I don't think they're going to stick away from canon. Carly technically kind of made Zemo right. She was Robin Hood and all this stuff. She's getting the serums, but he's talking about, no, we don't need these super serums. All this stuff is fucked up. We can't trust it in anyone's hands to be with this type of shit. And then she goes and blows up a building, and Zemo was technically right there, even though she was Robin Hood saving people and they were all doing good, but Zemo was right. I think Sam's going to still end up taking it. I don't. He's currently at this next phase where it's like, oh, I need to destroy it type of thing.
Is he going through the 7 stages of
He is.
grief there?
I don't know.
Now he's in denialism. He's like, I'm just going to destroy it.
Star Shadow. Who do you think is going to be the Cap at the end of this? John Walker, Sam, or Bucky?
It's going to be Sam because it's kind of like how they did WandaVision, setting her up to become the Scarlet Witch. They're kind of trying to set Sam up to become Captain America.
I think it's going to be Sam. I think that's the whole point of this. Yeah, they're definitely not going to give it to Bucky.
What's the point of getting the black perspective and the black thing if you're going to basically disenfranchise the black character from what's rightfully his in the end?
Right.
This is Sam's story, right? And Bucky just happens to be along for the ride. But you know what I mean? Like they didn't go through this. They're not going through this to put Bucky in as Captain America.
But Bucky has been Captain America in the past.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, but that's not this Bucky. He's too
under different circumstances.
He can't hurt people.
That is true. But then again,
and he has to accept who he is.
But the thing is, like,
Captain America.
If the MCU is going to introduce a character like John Walker and give John Walker the shield, right? What is Captain America? I mean,
but
this
remember
could be
the beginning when Bucky went his plan to get Zemo and the contrast of his character to Sam, and when Bucky fell back in the bar to being the Winter Soldier like it was natural. This whole episode was contrasting the differences in those characters, that Bucky is not and cannot be the Captain America because he's not far different in the ways that John Walker is. Sam is the only correct one there to be Captain America.
And I 100% agree with you, but let's not forget, this show's title is Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and we are telling two stories. It's not just Sam's story. This is Bucky's redemption arc. Like, this is like Bucky coming to terms with everything that they've done, like basically just wrapping up all the Winter Soldier stuff and putting that to bed, finally, right?
I will say, if he gets to punch John Walker in the face at least once by the 6th, I feel like that's a great redemption arc.
As long as he does it with the vibranium arm. Snatch that smug little face.
And so the episode wraps up
Would you say Bucky's heavily armed?
Oh my god.
Oh.
Los Tres Amigos end up at Riga, Latvia. And there's a really cool callback to MCU history there. Sam says something like, all these places look like each other, or like, I don't know where we are. Zemo was talking about that once Sokovia fell and the area was destroyed, that a lot of the European nations then come in and took over the lands and carved it up all for themselves. Not too different from whatever happened to, was it Jerusalem after World War II?
Middle East and Middle East, the Germanic areas post World War I, World War II, and pretty much all of Africa.
Right.
But
in that kind of similar vein, Zemo makes this thing like, hey, you know, we even have a Sokovian memorial here, but I'm pretty sure neither of you decided to bother to come. Basically underlining that something that he kind of started in Civil War is that there are costs to being a superhero. And even now, they are not really like, they're not the cleanup crew. We even saw that in in Spider-Man, right? Tony Stark hires contractors and does all these things to do the cleanup work. It's not the Avengers. They are not seeing the damage that they do firsthand. For me, I feel like Zemo flipped this entire script, this entire episode. Because I don't think I don't know. Zemo puts me in this really weird gray area where he talks a lot of truth, but he also is very fucking toxic. And so Bucky is like, hey, I gotta go take a walk. And then we follow Bucky through a couple of streets in Latvia. He's collecting all these little balls. And then he realizes that these belong to somebody or something. And he calls out for them. And all of a sudden, it's Ayo from Wakanda. And she's here to kill Zemo.
Yeah, so I would agree with you. Like, Zemo he's kind of I don't want to say moral compass, but he definitely has, like, he definitely says, and things that people think about with comics, like, how do they get away with that? Or, like, what happens after they destroy a place? And, like, what are the consequences of those? I do find it interesting that he, of course, chides them for not coming to see the memorial when neither one of them were involved in that. Like they should go check it out, like they have vacation time or something. Both of them got blipped, for that matter. So neither one of them had time to go fucking check out the Sokovia fucking war memorial. But it is, you're right. He absolutely is. There's something about him in this, the way they wrote him in this series, that he definitely is kind of like some moral balance there with, like, well, you got good guys and you got bad guys, and that's why we shouldn't have. We really don't want to have either. If you have the really good ones, you have the really bad ones, and after you guys do all this stuff, this is the consequences of what ends up happening. Again, none of this stuff was like anyone's particular. No one did this. No Avenger did this on purpose. They didn't destroy Sokovia as a malicious act. They were actually trying to save the world. And Sokovia just happened to be, collateral damage. I don't know. He's an interesting character for sure. The way they wrote him in this, because in the original movie, in Civil War, you don't really get to know his motives very well. So just that he wants to destroy the Avengers,
So there's an interesting thing about Sokovia, because I feel like Sokovia has been playing a rather interesting part in the MCU lately, because. Sokovia, I feel like Sokovia's gotten fucked throughout the years. There was the Sokovian War that Tony Stark had a hand in, not directly, but through his missiles. Obviously, that impacted Wanda and how she grew up.
And Hydra.
Lots right?
Of Hydra.
You had everything that happened in Age of Ultron. And all that happened. You have the Sokovia Accords that follow afterwards. You have the rise of Baron Zemo. Everything just kind of like revolves around Sokovia in this weird like kind of off-screen kind of way. But it must really suck to be a survivor of Sokovia, because not only did your like country just fucking blow up, but then like in a couple of years you turn half of your people turn into dust.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, there was a period of 5 years where I'm pretty sure Sokovians were almost extinct as like a nation.
We're talking about legacies, and I know what comes after this is Spider-Man and what Tony Stark starts up. But like my primary memory of Falcon is constantly flying around the new Avengers like Stronghold and stuff like that, like pre-blip. And my question is, especially in the last several episodes, like, what happened to like that in the contracting group and everything that Tony kind of planned for them? Like, I know Tony died, but Tony planned all this ahead and knew that he wasn't going to be around. That was part of it, including Falcon was part, like the mainstead of that. Where did that go?
Well, first of all, the Avengers facility in upstate New York was completely obliterated by Thanos. So all that's gone.
Does this mean we're gonna have West Coast Avengers now?
That very well could be, yeah.
But
Where
still-
are they
No, we'll get Young
The
Avengers.
LA?
facility's destroyed. First off, do you really think Tony didn't have insurance? No. And but the money, Tony's also one of the wealthiest people on the whole fucking planet. And when it comes,
Yeah,
it's
he's the Bruce Wayne
was.
of the Marvel.
but it's his backbone and his legacy is still supposed to be after, and they're still Avengers. There's still, I don't get how his influence isn't going through any of their travels and what they're doing. Even as contractors at this point through the because it was Tony who was the one that pushed for the Sokovia Accords. So you would think he would be the one representing heroes from the American side for contracting work and doing this big shit.
I feel like we did get a good major info dump of the GRC in this episode, but I still feel like there's still more of the GRC where we still need to learn.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if Stark Industries was involved in some way or funding or being a big supporter of the GRC.
I get a feeling the GRC is still some puppet organization, possibly the power broker, possibly of someone else. The power broker seems like that would be the likely solution. I don't know. I don't feel that they are good, that they're a source of good. I mean, no good organization has a freaking infomercial like that. There's something, they're hiding something, right?
You mean every pharmaceutical company ever that sells drugs and everyone's smiling?
Yeah, so there's something going on with them, but just real quick, going back to Bucky running into the lady from Wakanda, whose name escapes me again right now.
Ayo.
Ayo.
Yep.
Ayo. And she's been in all the Wakanda settings and stuff like that, and she was in Civil War and Black Panther and stuff. I think that's a really interesting twist. I did not see that coming. I did not see Wakanda coming into play with this at all. So I'll be very curious as to see what they do with Zemo in this case, because I'm assuming they either want to kill him or they want to take him back to Wakanda for justice, right?
Do you think Wakanda's involved with the new super serum at all? Considering that they have their own version of a super soldier? And that something got stolen and they're blaming him or trying to look for something going on involving it themselves?
I don't think so.
I think they're literally just there because Zemo got out of prison.
All right.
That makes sense, yeah. He did escape at the beginning of the episode, so it's
Yeah, and he did kill their king.
So let's wrap it up here. As we now usually do with these kind of things, we have next episode predictions.
I think Ao and Bucky are gonna fuck. It's gonna be really good, and he's gonna give her the best fucking orgasm with that vibranium hand of his.
the fingers.
Yeah.
Jesus. Moo.
Do you think vibrate? They could.
If you hit them all enough, I'm sure they do.
Your next episode predictions?
I mean, I've talked a lot about my predictions through this thing, so I'm kind of thinking we're going to I'm hoping to see that. But there's a lot of information I do want to get when it comes down to basically more about the GRC for sure and the broker. So I'm hoping the next episode gets us more background on the broker and the GRC, because I feel like that's those two really need fleshed out. And after we have more information, I feel like that would clarify any of my thoughts. I'm thinking A is coming to kill Zemo. I have a feeling Bucky's going to be like, sure, fine, whatever. And Sam again is going to be like the good guy, like, hey, no, like, I mean, I didn't want him here, but I'm not going to let you just fucking straight up kill this dude, like, because Sam's a good boy. Bucky's kind of like, he's fucking Hydra anyway, so it's like I was going to end him when I was finished with this in the first place.
Not to mention Bucky owes Wakanda everything.
Yeah,
That's true.
That too.
Like,
So Star Shadow, you were the winner of last week's prediction. So give us a good one for episode 4.
I got two, and they don't have to happen in the next episode or in the series whatsoever.
Okay.
I do want to see a power broker reveal, because we haven't seen him, and he's been mentioned in like 2 episodes already. The second one, I really want the GRC to be revealed to be funded or at least run in some capacity by AIM.
Ooh, that's a good one. Okay. I'm gonna. So since Dad threw the oddball, I will submit a serious one. I think in the next episode, we're gonna finally find out who the power broker is. I also feel like they're gonna introduce that Martin Freeman character back.
The one
that
did all this stuff with that. Mm-hmm. Like the only white character in all of Wakanda.
Right. I feel like he needs to be back for some kind of negotiation process there. So power broker reveal, Martin Freeman's character coming back, and I feel like somehow, because we're getting really close to Black Widow movie territory, I feel like in the next episode we're also going to have a thread that's going to somehow connect to the Black Widow movie that's coming out in May.
I don't know.
So those are my predictions.
That movie was supposed to come out way before this, so it wouldn't make sense to me for this to like correlate with these episodes.
Yeah, I would agree with Moo on that one. It's not impossible, but I definitely think there's probably these movies. This is out of order. In fact, this should have actually been before Wakanda or before Wanda.
I hear you, but I'm not talking about Natasha Romanoff, Black Widow. I'm talking about Elena. Widow, aka Black Widow 2. Well, those are our predictions, and why don't you guys tell us your predictions in the comments below? Thank you guys for watching. I'm sorry that the episode 2 came out really late. I'll get episode 3 out. This is another chunky ass episode, so I will get working on that. Thanks to Kurt Jacobs, Star Shadow, Moo. Thank you for being my co-host here. And thank you guys for watching, and we love everything Marvel here, so you guys have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.